On September 11th, I was on my way back from Vancouver, British Columbia to take a flight from Seattle back to Baltimore, Washington Airport. My name is Arlene Polangin, and today is October 21st, 2002. The Canadian border was closed that day, and so our tour bus was turned back to Vancouver. We were stranded in Vancouver for 24 hours, and what we found was that the Canadians were absolutely amazing to us. We stayed in a phenomenal hotel. They treated us as if we were honored guests. We were comped for the room. They fed us. People on the street stopped us, and I guess we must have looked like we were in a daze. And they asked us if we were Americans. It was kind of a dream. I spent that day watching television and waiting to see if we would be able to get back on the bus the next morning. And if we did, if we would get through the border, because they didn't know if the border would be open. The next day we started out again, and we did get to the border, and although normally the Canadian Washington state border is a quick breeze through, that day we all took all of our luggage off, and we were all x-rayed and wanded, and it was not a process that anyone objected to, even though there were 40-some people on the bus. We got back to Seattle, and it was really quite interesting because we did have rooms there. We were expected to pay for them, and people were not quite as kind to us. No one is sure why. We were staying right across the street from the SeaTac Airport, the Seattle-Tacoma Washington Airport. And the advantage there was that we were able to see that no planes were taking off. No one had been able to reach the East Coast. All phones, cell phones, pay phones were all either blocked or busy or locked up. And I spent the next couple of days in kind of a surreal world of trying to get back home to D.C., watching television, crying, talking to family here, and wondering actually what kind of world my children, who were adults, would face, and my future grandchildren would face. Not even thinking about the world that I've lost. But really, what kind of a legacy have we got for our future children? And once I finally was able to arrive home at 2:30 in the morning on the 15th of September at BWI Airport and making it back to my home, I spent the next 3 months walking from room to room, being unable to focus, thinking to myself, not believing, I guess. That was the main thing, just not being able to believe. And I finally realized that I just had to turn off the television. I could not comprehend anymore. I found myself very fortunate. All of my immediate family is safe. I have a sister and brother-in-law in New York. I have a daughter-in-law who worked 4 blocks from the White House. I wasn't worried about my son because I knew that he was not in harm's way. I do have a son who lives and works in Japan, and I was worried because he works on a military base, and that can be dangerous, although he's a civilian employee. I consider myself very fortunate from that perspective. what I finally had to do was I realized I had to seek some help. And for the first time ever in my life, I called a crisis hotline and just talked and talked and talked because I felt like I was drowning in this stuff. And they suggested that I seek out a group specifically to deal with the trauma of 9/11. And I did that, and that helped. But to this day, even looking at these photographs, I've been to New York a couple of times since 9/11, and I made a very conscious decision not to go down to ground zero. I can't cope. I know what it was, and actually being there, I think, is more than I can comprehend. I can cope with. I'm coping as best I can. And to this day, I find that there are times when I still have nightmares. I had a nightmare after when I finally got home of me being in the World Trade Center. It comes up when I'm least expecting it. And it comes up when it has nothing to do with 9/11. Looking at these photographs, yes, the tears are coming again. I also find that people who were not stranded away, although the best advice that everyone was given, or at least what I heard, was to talk about it. And I found that once I was back home, family and friends really didn't want to talk about it. It was as if the way that was best for them to cope was just to act as if it hadn't happened. And for me, that wasn't an acceptable way. So I spent a few months in therapy, and that helped significantly. I have a sense that I will not ever get over this. It has certainly dulled from the past year. I didn't travel for a long time, and then I finally realized I had to begin to travel again. I just came back from France, and I was nervous. It was the first time I'd gotten on a plane. I've been to New York, but I took the train. So, in essence, I guess there's a part of me that still doesn't believe it, and there's another part of me that is waiting for the other shoe to drop. And these terrorist bombing that we had recently in Bali, I guess just a week ago, it's what's going to happen next. So I guess the way I want to finish is by saying, how do we ever fully comprehend this kind of atrocity? And I guess there's no answer.